Retro game products are alive and well in 2019 and probably for the foreseeable future. You've got cool stuff like the arcade 1-up cabinets, plug-and-play systems, the NES Classic, the SNES Classic, the upcoming Sega Genesis Mini. Of course, you have things like the Capcom Home Arcade, which... clear buttons. I will never get over those clear buttons. But of course, you have two companies that are making new systems in 2019 and beyond. The first company being Atari with the Atari VCS. So far with the Atari VCS, we've heard a lot of stuff about power, but we really haven't seen how this power is going to be utilized. But in October of 2018, we also were introduced to another system, another older brand coming back to the gaming spotlight with the Intellivision Amico. And honestly, I kind of completely forgot all about this thing. I actually made a video on the Intellivision Amico when it was first unveiled, and then it was pretty quiet after that. We didn't really hear any information on it. We did know that they were shooting for a 2020 release, and that was pretty much it. So I had forgotten about the Intellivision Amico, along with, I feel like, a lot of other people. But today, they let freedom ring with a shotgun blast by making a big announcement of a console exclusive. A new Earthworm Jim is coming to the Intellivision Amico. What? Earthworm Jim? Are you freaking serious? So in today's video, I want to go over what we know about the Intellivision Amico so far, what we know about this brand new version of Earthworm Jim, and can this console be somewhat successful? So that's what we're going to talk about today. So sit back, relax, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and let's talk about the Intellivision Amico and a brand new Earthworm Jim, baby.
Hey, RGT85. Hey, Sean.
Oh my God, it's Stevie Richards! So more than likely you have completely forgotten about the Intellivision Amico, or maybe you even never knew about it in the first place. And if you're one of those people, don't feel bad, because honestly, I had to give myself a refresher this morning, because like I said, it's been very quiet about this system since we got some initial details in October of 2018. The Intellivision Amico is a brand new system coming to us with the Intellivision branding that is looking at a 2020 release. Now, the main figurehead behind this project is Tommy Tallarico. Now, if that name sounds familiar to you, it should, because if you're a retro gamer, you probably played a game that Tommy Tallarico was involved in. Tommy Tallarico did some of the best soundtracks in retro gaming history. My personal favorite was the Terminator soundtrack on Sega CD. Like, it's so good. It's like 80s butt rock, and it's just like like, it's just so good, and it so totally fits that Terminator universe. So Tommy Tallarico is an OG in the video gaming universe. He's been around for a very, very long time. And the Intellivision Amico is his brainchild. It is a new project coming to us from Tommy Tallarico and his group of investors. Now, the Intellivision Amico is looking at a $150 to $180 price point, which I think is a good price point, honestly. Anything under $200, you can start to sort of get those impulse buys. So I feel like that's going to be a very important part of the system. Now, as far as the controllers are concerned with the system, as someone who did not play Intellivision stuff because it was a bit before my time, you can definitely see that it is inspired by the Intellivision system and the original Intellivision controllers, but it does have modern touches such as gyrometers built into the controllers as well. It looks like it's going to come with two different controllers that will dock into the system and be able to charge into the system. Now, what's really interesting about the controllers of the system is that you can actually download an application on a cell phone and have a simulated controller. So if you have friends over or other people over, then you can access the controllers via the cell phone app, so that way everyone has a controller. So I really like that. It's sort of a modern feature, a nice little modern touch with the thing. Now, as far as games are concerned with this, we haven't really heard many games involved with this system. We did know that there would be Intellivision and Atari remastered games on this system, and one of the things that I kind of don't like about this system that I think could be a potential problem down the road is the fact that it seems like everything that they've talked about so far is 2D. It seems like this is going to be a primarily 2D gaming system, which in theory is fine. I love 2D games, a lot of us do, but I would like for the option for developers to make 3D games as well. If you're sort of limiting everything to just 2D games, I feel like you're sort of limiting the developers' creativity. Now, obviously, like I said, the first batch of games that have been announced have been Intellivision and Atari remasters, so things like this aren't going to be very graphically taxing, but I feel like by limiting how game developers can develop games games on this system could be very detrimental to the system. Now, what's interesting is the price point of the games on the system. Games are going to cost anywhere from $2.99 to $7.99. So $8 for the new games, and every game that's developed for the Intellivision Amico is a console exclusive. It will be available exclusively only on this system. So that's pretty interesting to me. Will there be physical games? There's going to be some limited physical editions of games that will be released that will be at a bit of a higher price point, and it'll just be a limited edition thing. But what I'm curious about is whether or not these games will actually be able to be played on this console via the physical media, because it doesn't seem like there's any physical media on this slot, which kind of is a head scratcher to me. If you're going with something like the Intellivision name and a retro aesthetic and a retro gaming name, I would think you would want to include physical media, because a lot of retro gamers such as myself appreciate and want physical media. But I think the fact that these games are going to be $8 or less is very interesting. Now, speaking of the games, you're actually going to have only quality over quantity. That's one of the things they're really promoting with this system. They want every game to be a 7 out of 10 or above. So, you know, that's kind of interesting. Obviously, scores are very subjective. Who's to decide whether or not this game is a 7 out of 10 or above? I assume they're going to have a panel of people available for this. But, you know, one of the problems that comes along with the Intellivision Amico, a secondary problem, is the fact that all games are going to be rated E to E10. There's not going to be any teen rated or mature rated games. They want this console to be a console for everyone, a family friendly console, which in theory is fine. But once again, I feel like you're sort of limiting. If it's a console for everyone, there are people out there that like teen rated and mature rated games. I think at the very least it should be T rated games should be available on there, maybe on a case by case basis. I don't know. I just kind of feel like by limiting developers, by saying you can only make 2D games or you can only make games that are E to E10, it just sort of limits creativity with the system. And I hope it's something that maybe can be looked at down the future and maybe a bit revised when it comes to Intellivision's policies with this system. But like I said, today Intellivision made a big announcement. They said that a brand new Earthworm Jim is coming exclusively to the Intellivision Amico. Now, we don't have really any details about it. It's obviously sort of in the pre-planning stages, but they do have 10 original team members from the original Earthworm Jim game working on this game. So to me right there, that's a big win. Earthworm Jim is an awesome franchise that time has definitely forgotten about. There was 2 games available on the Sega Genesis, then Earthworm Jim went into 3D and everyone just forgot about him because it wasn't a good game. But back in the 90s, Earthworm Jim was a big franchise. There was a Saturday morning cartoon with Earthworm Jim. Like, people loved him. There was merchandise as well. So to see a brand new Earthworm Jim game coming to this system shows me a couple different things. It shows me that Intellivision and Tommy Tallarico are taking this very seriously. It seems like all of the games that are being developed on this system are being paid out of pocket by Tommy and his team of investors to build up a really great library of games. But what's more important to me is it's not going to be just remasters of Intellivision and Atari games. That was one of my biggest fears going into this system, because that was all they had talked about. I wanted to see a catalog of 8-bit games. I want to see a catalog of 16-bit games available on this system as well. These older IPs that time has forgotten, that people have just abandoned, brought back into the limelight, and now it seems like there is going to be a chance for that. There's going to be a big chance for that with the Intellivision Amico. So honestly, there's a lot of things I like about the system, and there's a lot of things that I just feel like need to be addressed with this system. The 2 biggest points of contingency with this system, the 2 biggest problems I have with this system, has to be the fact that it seems to be primarily a 2D system and the rating system with this. The only E and E10 games on this system, you're just sort of limiting people. You're just sort of limiting the library of games that you can have available on this console. But in the same breath, there are things I like about it. If you're getting a big IP like Earthworm Jim and you're trying to get Earthworm Jim back into the limelight, that shows you that you're willing to spend money on this. If you're getting the original team back together to work on this version of the game, that's a big win in my opinion. People talk all the time about Rare and they say, oh, I wish Rare would go back to the N64 days, but Rare is really just a name. If you take a name and do nothing with it, it's just a name. You know, the Rare that we have today is completely different than the Rare from 20 years ago that made your N64 classics. By getting the original teams back together and getting the original people involved in these projects, it shows that you're willing to spend money. You're willing to take this project very seriously. So that's all we really know about the Intellivision Amico so far. There is going to be a presentation this weekend on the Earthworm Jim game with the developers of the game. There's going to be a live Q&A. It'll be available on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, all sorts of different media outlets. So make sure you guys check that out. I probably will be in the chat for that because I have a lot of questions about the Earthworm Jim game. But you know what? Intellivision, if they only manage to do one thing, they managed to make me interested. interested in this system, and I think they're going to make a lot of people interested in this system by announcing something like Earthworm Jim. And right then and there, that's a win for me. I'm already more interested in this system than I was in the Atari VCS. So hopefully we get some more game announcements. I want to know in the comment section down below, what old franchises do you think we could end up seeing on this system? Do you think this system has any sort of chance of success in the video game marketplace, or do you think it's just going to be sort of a niche thing that will eventually fade away? I don't know. There's a lot of questions still going into the system, but I'm definitely interested right now. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Check out other videos on the channel, and as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.